The shrill whistle of a passing locomotive pierced the morning air as Tabitha Wilson struggled to gather her 6 children on the dusty platform of Cottonwood Springs, Arizona Territory, 1878. Clutching her threadbare carpetbag in one hand and her youngest child's small fingers in the other, she surveyed the frontier town with anxious eyes. The journey west had depleted her meager savings, but she had arrived with hope and the promise of her late husband's cousin offering shelter until she could establish herself. That hope shattered when she discovered he had died of cholera 3 months prior. "Mama, I'm hungry," whimpered 4-year-old Eliza, her golden curls damp with sweat beneath her bonnet. "I know, sweetheart, we'll find something soon," Tabitha promised, though her voice wavered. She straightened her shoulders and addressed her children. "Samuel, mind your sisters. Emma, hold onto the twins. We're going to find somewhere to rest." 10-year-old Samuel nodded solemnly, his father's serious expression mirrored in his young face. Emma, 8 years old and already showing signs of her mother's quiet determination, took the hands of 6-year-old twins Mary and Martha. Eliza clung to her mother's skirts while 2-year-old Joseph rested on her hip. The town's main street stretched before them, buildings baking under the relentless southwestern sun. Tabitha approached the general store first, hoping the proprietor might know of work or lodging available for a widow with 6 children. The bell jangled as she entered, her brood trailing behind her like ducklings. "Good day," she began, addressing the thin man behind the counter. "I'm Tabitha Wilson. I've just arrived with my children and 6 children," the man interrupted, his gaze sweeping over the small crowd behind her. "And no husband. My husband passed at Gettysburg," Tabitha explained, her voice steady despite the familiar pain. "I'm looking for work and a place. Don't have work for a woman with that many mouths to feed," he said flatly. "Town's struggling as is, can't help you." The pattern repeated throughout the day. At the boarding house, the owner wrinkled her nose at the sight of 6 children. "Children make noise and mess. My other boarders wouldn't stand for it." By sundown, Tabitha's feet ached almost as much as her heart. They had found no shelter, and the few coins in her purse wouldn't stretch to feed all 7 of them for more than a day or two. They settled beneath a cottonwood tree at the edge of town, the children quiet with exhaustion. "Mama, where will we sleep tonight?" Samuel asked, his voice barely audible as he helped arrange their few blankets. "Right here under this beautiful tree," Tabitha answered with forced cheerfulness. "Look how the stars shine for us. It's like a palace ceiling." She distributed the last of their bread and dried apples, taking none for herself. As her children drifted into uneasy sleep, Tabitha allowed silent tears to fall. She had gambled everything on this move west, believing she could build a new life for her family. Now she feared she had led her children to an even worse fate than they had fled. "Madam," the deep voice startled her, and Tabitha scrambled to her feet, positioning herself between the stranger and her sleeping children. A tall man stood several paces away, his face shadowed by his wide-brimmed hat. Moonlight revealed worn denim, a dusty leather vest, and the glint of a gun on his hip. "I mean no harm," he said, raising his hand slightly. "Saw you and the young uns earlier. Thought you might have found lodgings by now." "The town wasn't as welcoming as I'd hoped," Tabitha admitted, her voice stiff with pride despite her circumstances. The man removed his hat, revealing a face weathered by sun and wind, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. He appeared to be in his mid-30s, with sandy hair and a neatly trimmed beard streaked with premature gray. "Name's Colton Quinn. Got a ranch about 3 miles outside town, not much to look at, but there's a spare room in the back of the house. Used to be for my ranch hand before he moved on." Tabitha stiffened. "I appreciate your concern, Mr. Quinn, but I couldn't possibly—" "Madam, I'm not offering anything improper," he said quickly, a hint of color rising above his beard. "Just seems wrong for children to sleep outside when there's shelter available. The room's sitting empty and the night air gets cold even in summer." "Why would you help strangers?" Tabitha asked, suspicion warring with desperate hope. Colton Quinn's gaze drifted toward the sleeping children. "Lost my sister and her family to fever some years back. Always reckoned if she'd been stranded somewhere, I'd have wanted someone to lend a hand." He cleared his throat. "Anyway, the offer stands. I've got a wagon hitched just down the road." Tabitha studied him, searching for any sign of deceit. Finding none, she made a decision that would change everything. "We accept your kind offer, Mr. Quinn, for tonight at least." Colton helped gather the sleeping children, carrying the youngest to himself while Tabitha roused the others. The wagon ride was mostly silent, broken only by the occasional question from a sleepy child. The ranch appeared as they crested a small hill, a modest house with a barn and corral beside it, silhouetted against the star-filled sky. "It's not much," Colton said apologetically as he helped them down from the wagon. "It's perfect," Tabitha whispered, overwhelmed by the simple kindness of a roof over their heads. The room behind the kitchen was plain but clean, with two narrow beds and a trundle that could be pulled out from beneath one of them. Colton quickly vacated, mumbling about needing to check on his horses, while Tabitha settled her exhausted children. When all six were finally asleep, she sank onto a wooden chair, the events of the day catching up with her. She heard a soft knock on the doorframe and looked up to see Colton holding a steaming mug. "Thought you might want some tea," he said, offering it to her. "Must have been a long day." "Thank you," she said, accepting the drink gratefully. "For everything." "Get some rest, Mrs. Wilson. Things often look better by daylight." Morning arrived with the sound of roosters crowing and the smell of coffee brewing. Tabitha woke disoriented before remembering where they were. She quickly dressed and stepped into the kitchen to find Colton at the stove, awkwardly attempting to scramble eggs. "Good morning," she said, causing him to jump slightly. "May I help with that?" "Wouldn't say no," he admitted with a self-deprecating smile. Never claimed to be much of a cook. Working together, they prepared a simple breakfast. The children emerged one by one, shy at first but quickly warming to the friendly rancher who seemed genuinely interested in their chatter. "Mr. Quinn," Tabitha began as they cleaned up after the meal, "I appreciate your hospitality, but we can't impose on you. If you could direct us to someone in town who might be willing to hire me." "Truth is, Mrs. Wilson, I could use some help around here," Colton interrupted. "Ranch keeps me busy and the house shows it. Been thinking of hiring someone to cook and keep things in order." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "The room's yours as long as you need it. We can work out fair wages." Tabitha studied him, hardly daring to believe such fortune. "That's very generous, but I have 6 children, Mr. Quinn. They're well behaved, but they're still children." "Got plenty of space outside for them to run," he replied. "And I reckon the older ones could learn to help with some of the easier chores if they're interested." Samuel, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. "I can work, sir. My pa taught me to take care of animals before he died." Colton nodded solemnly at the boy. "I believe you can, son. Every ranch needs good hands." That evening, after the children were asleep, Tabitha joined Colton on the porch. The night was cool, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of sage and distant rain. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said quietly. "The town made it clear they want nothing to do with us." "Most men wouldn't want the burden of a woman with 6 children." Colton was silent for a long moment, staring out at the darkened landscape. "I know something about not belonging," he finally said. "Came west after the war with nothing but nightmares and a bad leg from a rebel bullet. People took one look at my limp and decided I wasn't worth hiring." He glanced at her. "Eventually found this place, worked it until it turned a profit. Now I'm respected in town because I have something they want: cattle and good grazing land." "So you understand what it's like to be judged unfairly," Tabitha murmured. "Yes, madam, I do." He turned to face her. "Those folks in town, they're not bad people, just scared of anything different, anything that might upset their comfortable ways. They'll come around once they see you for who you are." "And who am I, Mr. Quinn?" His eyes, soft in the lantern light, met hers. "A brave woman doing her best for her children. That's something worth respecting." The days fell into a rhythm. Tabitha rose early to prepare breakfast and send Colton off to his work. She kept the house, repaired clothing, and prepared meals while supervising her children. Samuel followed Colton like a shadow whenever allowed, soaking up knowledge about horses and cattle. Emma proved to have a green thumb and started a small kitchen garden. The twins, inseparable as always, became expert egg collectors, while little Eliza appointed herself keeper of the ranch cats. Even Joseph toddled happily around the yard, fascinated by everything. 2 weeks after their arrival, Tabitha accompanied Colton into town for supplies. She felt the stares and whispers as they walked together into the general store, but Colton acted as if nothing were amiss. "Morning, Peterson," he greeted the shopkeeper, the same man who had turned Tabitha away on her first day. "Need the usual, plus whatever Mrs. Wilson requires for the house." Mr. Peterson's eyebrows rose. "She working for you now, Quinn?" "She is," Colton confirmed, his tone brooking no argument, "and doing a fine job of it." As they gathered supplies, Tabitha noticed the shopkeeper's wife studying her. "Your children," the woman finally said. "How do they fare?" "They're thriving, thank you," Tabitha replied cautiously. "The open air seems to agree with them." Mrs. Peterson nodded slowly. "My sister in Kansas has 4, don't know how she manages." She hesitated, then added, "If you're in need of any children's clothing, we have some pieces my nieces and nephews have outgrown, nothing fancy but sturdy." Tabitha blinked in surprise. "That's very kind. I would appreciate that greatly." It was a small opening, but significant. As summer deepened into autumn, more townspeople began to acknowledge Tabitha with nods or brief greetings. The children were invited to join the local school, though Tabitha worried about the 3-mile journey each day. "I'll drive them in the wagon when weather permits," Colton offered, "and perhaps we can arrange something with the station master's wife for days I can't." "You've already done so much," Tabitha protested. "I can't keep accepting your charity." Colton's expression grew serious. "It's not charity, Tabitha, your being here has been." He seemed to search for words. "This place hasn't felt like a home in a long time, not until you and the children came." It was the first time he had used her given name, and it sent an unexpected warmth through her. Over the weeks, she had grown increasingly aware of Colton, his quiet strength, his gentle way with her children, the rare but heartwarming smile that transformed his solemn face. She had caught him watching her sometimes with an expression she dared not interpret, afraid of her own response. "The children adore you," she said softly. "Samuel talks of nothing but becoming a rancher like you someday." Pride and something deeper flickered in Colton's eyes. "He's a good boy. Sharp mind. Reminds me of myself at that age, only he's got something I didn't, a mother who believes in him." The first real crisis came as autumn painted the countryside in golds and reds. Joseph developed a high fever that refused to break despite Tabitha's best efforts with cool compresses and willow bark tea. By the second day, the toddler's breathing had grown labored. "We need to get him to a doctor," Colton said, his face grave as he watched the child struggle for breath. "The nearest doctor is in Prescott," Tabitha cried, desperation in her voice. "That's 2 days' ride. Doc Jenkins visits town once a month. He's due tomorrow, but—" Colton hesitated. "Joseph might not have until tomorrow," Tabitha finished, tears welling in her eyes. "There's an old Navajo woman who lives about 10 miles north," Colton said suddenly. "People call her Grandmother Blue. She knows healing ways that sometimes work when white medicine fails." Tabitha didn't hesitate. "Take us to her, please." Colton saddled his fastest horse, and with Joseph wrapped snugly against Tabitha's chest, they rode through the gathering dusk. The old woman's dwelling was a simple hogan nestled against red stone cliffs. Despite the late hour, she welcomed them, her weathered face creasing with concern as she examined Joseph. Through the night, Grandmother Blue administered herbal teas and applied poultices to the child's chest, singing soft chants as she worked. Tabitha never left her son's side, while Colton remained a steady presence, supporting them both. Dawn broke with Joseph's fever finally subsiding. The toddler opened his eyes, weak but alert, and reached for his mother. "Thank you," Tabitha whispered to the old woman, who merely nodded, her dark eyes wise and knowing. As they prepared to leave, Grandmother Blue spoke to Colton in her native tongue. He responded haltingly in the same language. "What did she say?" Tabitha asked as they rode home, Joseph sleeping peacefully against her, Colton's cheeks colored slightly. "She said we make a good family and that some bonds are formed by blood, others by choice. Both are sacred." The words hung between them, unaddressed but not forgotten. Back at the ranch, they were greeted by anxious children who swarmed around their mother and brother. Samuel had taken charge in their absence, making sure his siblings ate and went to bed on time. "You did well, son," Colton told him, resting a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Your father would be proud." Tears welled in Samuel's eyes at the mention of his father, and without warning, he threw his arms around Colton's waist. After a moment's surprise, Colton returned the embrace, his own eyes suspiciously bright. That night, after the children were asleep and Joseph was resting comfortably, Tabitha found Colton on the porch, staring at the star-filled sky. "I can never repay you for what you did today," she said quietly, joining him at the railing. "No need," he replied. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Tabitha contradicted him gently. "Not anyone. You've shown us more kindness in these past months than most people would in a lifetime." She gathered her courage. "The children have come to love you. I worry about how attached they've become." Colton turned to face her, his expression serious. "And you, Tabitha, have you become attached as well?" The directness of his question took her breath away. I've tried not to," she admitted. "It wouldn't be fair to you. We're still your responsibility, your burden." "Is that what you think?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "That I see you as a burden." He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him in the cool night air. "From the moment I saw you under that cottonwood tree, trying to make your children believe sleeping on the ground was an adventure, something in me recognized something in you." "What?" Tabitha whispered. "Courage, honor, the willingness to do whatever necessary for those you love." His hand reached up to gently touch her cheek. "I didn't bring you here out of pity, Tabitha. I brought you here because even then I think I knew my life would never be complete without you in it." Tabitha's heart thundered in her chest. "Colton, I'm a widow with 6 children. I have nothing to offer but more responsibility." "You have everything to offer," he countered. "A home filled with laughter and love, the chance to be part of something meaningful." His eyes searched hers. "I've been alone a long time, thought that was my lot in life. Then you arrived, and suddenly this house became a home." Tabitha trembled, years of struggle and loneliness making her afraid to believe. "My children come first, always." "As they should," Colton agreed. "I wouldn't want it any other way." She looked up at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, the hope and the question there. Slowly, she nodded. His kiss was gentle, a promise rather than a demand. When they parted, Tabitha felt tears on her cheeks, tears of relief, of joy, of finally finding safe harbor after years adrift. Winter arrived with unusual severity that year. Heavy snow isolated the ranch for weeks at a time, but inside the house, warmth and happiness flourished. Colton formally proposed at Christmas, presenting Tabitha with a simple gold band as the children watched with delighted eyes. "Does this mean you'll be our pa now?" Martha asked, always the more direct of the twins. Colton knelt to her level. "Only if you want me to be. I'll never try to replace your real father, but I promise to love and protect you as if you were my own." "Our pa would like you," Samuel declared with the certainty of a child who knows his mind. "He always said a good man takes care of more than just himself." The wedding took place in early spring, when the first wildflowers dotted the greening landscape. To Tabitha's surprise, nearly the entire town attended. Mrs. Peterson had helped sew her dress, while the school teacher had prepared a special song with all 6 Wilson children to perform at the celebration. "Seems you've won them over," Colton whispered as they greeted their guests. "We won them over," Tabitha corrected him. "Your standing up for us made them see past their prejudices." The simple ceremony was performed by a circuit-riding preacher who had known Colton for years. When Tabitha spoke her vows, her voice was clear and confident, all doubt long since vanished. Colton's hands trembled slightly as he placed the ring on her finger, his eyes never leaving hers. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the preacher declared. "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder." As Colton kissed his bride, cheers erupted from the assembled guests, the loudest from 6 children who now had a complete family again. The celebration continued into the evening, with fiddlers playing while couples danced under lantern light. Tabitha watched as Colton taught Emma and the twins a simple 2-step, his patience endless as they giggled and stepped on his toes. "You've done well for yourself," a voice said beside her. She turned to find Mr. Peterson, the shopkeeper who had first turned her away. "Thank you," she replied, unsure what else to say. The man cleared his throat uncomfortably. "I owe you an apology, Mrs. Wilson Quinn, that is. When you first came to town, I judged harshly without knowing your character." "You weren't alone," Tabitha said softly. "No, but that doesn't make it right." He glanced toward where Colton now danced with little Eliza standing on his boots. He's a good man, been alone too long. You and those children have brought him back to life. He saved us, Tabitha said simply. Seems to me the saving went both ways. The shopkeeper nodded respectfully and moved on, leaving Tabitha to ponder his words. Later that night, after the guests had departed and the children were finally asleep, exhausted from excitement, Tabitha and Colton stood on the porch of what was now truly their home. Happy, Mrs. Quinn? Colton asked, his arm around her waist. Happier than I ever thought possible again, she admitted, leaning into his embrace. When James died, I thought that part of my life was over. I focused only on survival, on keeping the children safe and fed. You did more than survive, Colton told her. You kept love and hope alive in their hearts. That's why they've flourished here. Tabitha turned in his arms to face him. And what about you? Are you happy with your instant family? His smile, once so rare, now came easily. I used to think this land was all I needed. Now I know it was just waiting for the right people to make it complete. They sealed the sentiment with a kiss, standing beneath the same stars that had witnessed their first meeting beneath the cottonwood tree. 5 years later, the Quinn Ranch had nearly doubled in size. The modest house had expanded to accommodate the growing family, which now included twin boys, Robert and Richard, born in the second year of their marriage. On a warm summer evening, much like the one when they had first met, Tabitha and Colton sat on the porch swing, watching their children play in the yard. Samuel, now 15 and nearly as tall as Colton, was teaching 10-year-old Joseph to throw a lasso. Emma, 13 and increasingly beautiful, supervised her younger sisters as they gathered eggs from the henhouse. The two youngest boys toddled after the ranch dog, their chubby legs still unsteady. Remember when you first brought us here? Tabitha asked, her head resting against her husband's shoulder. I was so afraid to hope this could last. And now, Colton asked, his fingers gently stroking her arm, now I know some things are meant to be, even if the path getting there isn't what we expected. She looked up at him with eyes full of the love that had grown stronger with each passing year. A stranger's kindness changed everything for us. Not kindness, Colton corrected gently. Recognition. From the moment I saw you, I recognized the piece of myself I never knew was missing. As the sunset painted the western sky in shades of gold and crimson, Samuel called for his siblings to come see a newborn foal in the barn. The children raced off together, their voices raised in excitement and joy. We've built something beautiful here, Tabitha whispered, watching them go. Yes, Colton agreed, drawing her closer. Something that will outlast us both. In a town that had once turned her away, in a land that demanded strength and resilience from all who sought to tame it, Tabitha had found not just shelter but a love that had transformed rejection into belonging, strangers into family, and two broken hearts into one whole and healing future.